No, Imogen is in town from LA. Welcome back to New York. And is launching also this beautiful book, which is available for sale over there at the table, Raw and Zero. Grab a copy if you haven't yet. Published by an obscure publisher whose name I don't, Nightboat. Okay, Nightboat Books. And is a truly exceptional book, so I truly recommend it. Basalt is an ESB fellow this year. I also see other ESB fellows in the room. Mace is here. Imogen is a former ESB fellow. For those of you who don't know ESB, it's an extension of our, and Alicia too, right? Is an extension of our of our pedagogical programs in which we pair an emerging quote unquote, and Mark is also our ESB fellow this year. Emerging poet with a mentor, and it's a year-long program in which a poet gets to work with another poet, and it's been, I think, very productive and interesting so far. So Basalt's mentor is Fargo Nassim Tbaki, who couldn't be here tonight, but has sent an introduction for you, Basalt, which I'm going to read for him. But before we begin, a few announcements. Coming up at the Poetry Project this Wednesday, Brandon Brown and Laura Hendrickson. On Monday, we're also celebrating, Belladonna is celebrating book launches by Carla Harriman, Maya Yu, and Lila Zamborain. And on Wednesday, we have Danny Hayward and Fred Moten. So please come back for these readings if you're around. And I think that's it for announcements. Come talk to me after if you have questions about ESB, or come talk to our fellows as well. It's a great program. Truly encourage anyone who's interested in working with a mentor to apply. Okay, so I will now read Fargo's introduction. Our two guest introducers aren't here tonight, so it will be introductions in absentia, but very much here spiritually. So Fargo lives in Philly, and Becca couldn't make it. They had couldn't make it tonight, but they did send a voice recording of their introduction. Okay. So this is Fargo's intro. An April 16, 2026 paper by the American Chemical Society evaluates the potential of basalt fiber reinforced composites in defense and military fields, including, quote, their applications in ballistic protection, personal armor and vehicular armor, aerospace components, and rocket motor insulation, naval structures, non-corrosive marine composites, and defense electronics, electromagnetically transparent housings, end of quote. Within this artifact is held the opening of the foundational set of entanglements that make up the world in which we must reluctantly live and work. Capital holding tight to imperialism, holding tight to militarism, all looking hungrily around at the earth, seeing it only and always as a potential site of future surplus death. Against this entanglement, from within this entanglement, the poetics of Basalt Sioux model a distinct and capacious refusal to disallow basalt, the rock, the poet, to become only a thing to be refined into weaponry for profit. Ferociously, their poems create coalitions of earth, people, bodies, human and non-human, spiritual counter-technologies dedicated to striking imperialism whenever they may. Following Kanafani's assertion that imperialism, quote, has laid its body over the world, Basalt's poems make newly visible this body, tracing its contours as it facilitates the dailiness of our lives, so that we might better know how how to cut its arteries. Quote, "What is broken can be rebuilt. All that was built can be torn apart," end of quote, they write, and point us towards the work simply of revolution. To read Basalt's work is to encounter a dialectic of insistent materialism and equally insistent spiritualism that is a distinctively anti-colonial dialectic. It reminds me then of De Prima's revolutionary letters, which move between the material imperative, 1, kill head of Dow chemical, 2, destroy plant, 3, make it unprofitable for them to build again, and 2, the spiritual imperative, quote, "The peace we seek was never seen before. The earth belongs at last to the living," end of quote. In much the same way that Basalt in their poem Remote Singing 4 manipulates the text, quote, "The fundamental tenet of all military geography is that every feature of the visible world possesses actual or potential military significance," end of quote, into a map, a form they also continue to trouble, to deconstruct, to destroy. The text that seeks to transform and flatten is transformed and made full, living, complex, sensuous. Basalt calls for all of us to join them inside a cacophonous collective of escalating refusals, and to think deeply and urgently about the many necessary forms that refusal must take. Like their namesake, forgive me, Basalt, but it's right here. I can't resist the metaphorical. Let's not leave all this language play to the fascists and their white papers. Basalt emerges from the inexorable turmoil of the earth, its burning magma, and the wild shock of its encounter with air, water, atmosphere. All transformation, the great expanse of what we mean by, quote, "the land," creating itself anew in different forms. And amidst all our use and counter-use of these forms, we ought to remember that they might have other ideas themselves. I welcome this poet's reminders of what those ideas might be, and I hope you will all do the same. Please join me in welcoming Basalt Sue to the stage.
Thank you, Mirren, and for reading and channeling Fargo. Thank you to the Poetry Project staff and volunteers who are really running the whole show behind the scenes and make this place alive. Poetry is nothing if not the practice of resourcefulness, of making something out of nothing or out of fucked up conditions. I made these poems with people who make poetry happen, despite having the bills to pay and bodies to heal and fights to pick. Fargo, my mentor for this fellowship, but also Kimberly, Gabrielle, Aika, and of course, Imogen and Alma. As well as people I see every day and grow with and organize with in and out of this room, who make the highest form of poetry possible, the poetry of transforming ourselves and our world around us. We will be looking at some map poems in a second, and I wrote these in a workshop with Imogen and Alma, and so this pairing with Imogen is a perfect pairing, and congratulations on the release of Raw and Zero. I'm working on a manuscript that I call Earth Intelligence. It begins from my grandfather who began from fishing. It begins from his islands off the southern coast of Taiwan. It begins from military bases in the South China Sea and drills on the Penghu archipelago. I search for Penghu every time I see a map. If I find it, I'm looking at a military map. For instance, a military map commissioned by the Dutch East India Company. The purpose is to secure the exchange of Japanese silver for Chinese silk. Penghu marks the transit point. Never mind the fish and the birds, the water and the shore. With his paintbrush, the cartographer outlines the edges of a fort. With their hands, Chinese fishermen heave stone to pack the fort walls. With their weapons, the Dutch work them to their graves. Here's another one. Maps commissioned by officials serving the Qing Empire, expanding sovereignty into its easternmost edge of Taiwan. These maps inaugurate waves of Chinese migrants, illegal and state-sanctioned, free and indentured, sailing for pages and pages and pages of water, mostly running from war, if not debt, if not famine. When they migrate to the Taiwan frontier zone, they steadily creep their rice paddies and sugarcane fields into indigenous land. This creep of cash crops will feed China's southern provinces, which are rich in other cash crops, yet starving for food. A ship may carry this wave of surplus labor to Taiwan or rice and sugar back to China's southern coast. Either way, a ship must transit Penghu, which divides the civilized from the savage, the loyal from the treacherous, the kingdom under heaven from terra incognita. I will put it plainly, Penghu is a buffer zone. It is an outpost. The cartographer keeps this in view. Never mind the fish and the birds and the coral walls shielding the vegetable gardens. Bird's eye view tells you what a ship on a mission should know, where not to dock and where to find fresh water for the crew. There are many more, maps I mean, and ships and crews and armies too. Japanese maps that plot populations with deadly precision, allocating schools or police prefectures, maps that authorize US-backed regimes that sanction military drills created by commercial satellite imaging, which could disappear at any moment at the whims of a commander-in-chief. What I am doing now is showing you what happens when we recall a place through military strategy. What I am doing now is showing you what happens to a place that transits silk for silver or one cash crop for another. I show you so that when I say trade, you think war. As I speak, ships crawl across the skin of the South China Sea, transiting pages and pages and pages of water between China, Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Land ends where the ports begin. The warships turn where the shipping begins. I put aside my grandfather to show you the transit of commodities, of global crude oil shipments. I put aside the fish and the birds to show you the arteries of propane and automotive trade. I put aside the water to show you the transit of $5.3 trillion of commercial goods, of which $1 trillion crawls across the Pacific back to US markets. According to JP Morgan, disruptions like strike or protest or machine failure cost $1 million per transit, which then transit to consumers like you and I. When I say trade, do you think war? Where is war in your line of sight? All good business runs on consumer protection. All consumer protection conceals itself through sacrifice zones. And so, in the South China Sea, capital wages strategic territorial disputes in our peripheral vision. War prepares itself for making islands out of sight. I am showing you an orchestrated rhythm of dock construction, uprooted trees, paved airstrips, lengthened military service, the draft US war games a second time this year. I am showing you a dispute over who controls what island and thus who controls shipping lanes and deep sea minerals. I am showing you a coordinated operation to ensure $5.3 trillion arrive just in time. By doing so, I am relocating war within our line of sight. I said that this begins with my grandfather, who begins from his islands. According to the UN, this is inaccurate. This is because An island is a naturally formed area of land surrounded by water, which is above water at high tide. Rocks which cannot sustain human habitation or economic life of their own shall have no exclusive economic zone or continental shelf. According to the UN, my grandfather begins not from islands, but from islands and rocks. Technicalities matter because just as fishermen once cast their nets for fish, now nation-states cast islands for a hefty catch. Economic zones of $5.3 trillion transiting the skin of the sea, beneath which bubbles 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas and 11 billion barrels of oil for the taking. According to the UN, what is habitable? According to the UN, what is a life? As my grandfather sails through pages and pages and pages of water, say he loses his bearings, say a rock appears on the horizon, say this tells you where home is in your line of sight. Who is to say that this rock does not save your life? Say a flock of birds cluster around this rock, telling you that the fish here are abundant, that no army will strike down your boat. Say this tells you there is no need to fight. Who is to say that this rock is not itself life? It is not only war that thrives in our peripheral vision. The birds, too, thrive. Commercial drones must return to their chargers after 30 minutes. Even military drones cannot fly for longer than 2 months. Whereas seabirds can coast through sky or rest on water without ever touching land for years. Birds mating, nesting, feeding, bird life, encrusting rocks with feces, crusting the rocks with their life, making rich with their waste, making islands uninhabitable for centuries, all beyond our line of sight. Say I abide by the UN, then it is easy to say that an island is of value and a rock is of waste. But we forget that while birds possess remarkable visual acuity developed over thousands and thousands of years, the UN, being only 80 years old, is short-sighted. As the birds take flight, I am recalling the cash crops. We have spent so long at sea, we have neglected the soil. For soil that has been depleted from monocropping, cash cropping, sharecropping, plantation slavery, waste too is of value. Feces too is of value. The crust of bird life is guano, which turns out to be a valuable commodity for depleted soil. In the South China Sea, many of the militarized islands and rocks were former deposits of guano. To mine guano, business needs labor. To pave runways, business needs labor. To build docks, to uproot trees, to dredge sand, to translate the sale of weapons, business needs a hand. When I say trade, do you think war? When I say war, do you think class war? Where is war in our line of sight? And where are your hands in your line of sight? This begins from my grandfather, who began from fishing. I wanted to know why he couldn't make a life doing what his father did, and that father before him, and that father before him. I wanted to know why, after generations, those hands were no longer useful. With these hands, what will I do now? Guano, island, uninhabitable rock, key, little specks, barren outcropping, reef, shelf, atoll, bank, key, coral reef, orange specks of flowers quiver in ash fields like tracks and tracks of flags. They came by ship. The vessels were ready to load. After all, they made a discovery. After all, they made a whole boat.
Navigation is free to all
load of homesick bodies into an island of unhinged bone. The boats left home hungry for islands. The boats came cleared of unhinged bone. The loans came back to Rome, came back dust whitened as a belly stowed with stunk songs outgrown. And songs came back scraped clean.
This is our enemy's greatest weakness. Any establishment's greatest weakness is the need for personnel to resist the people.
Of lungs, and what was soft remained eaten with acid, sea acid for soil, and soil for growing the living. So soil comes home with the dead.
The fundamental tenet of all military geography is that every feature of the visible world possesses actual or potential military significance.
The dead come back in songs, and song in rows, ground, groves. The US military returned to the jungle, training for a very different threat. Far from the deserts of the Middle East, the army is instructing troops in Hawaii on a potential clash with China. In order to wage war, it is absolutely necessary to train. In order to train, it is absolutely necessary to prepare the land. In order to prepare the land, it is absolutely necessary to strip or to desolate it through various means, or to find land that has already been desolated, is uninhabited, deserted. Barren land as an international legal category. Made proprietary archipelago as a military strategy betrays a structure of codependency while effacing the nodes to which a mainland vampirically attaches itself with stubby little things. And this was an actual headline that was published in the New York Times about 2 or 3 months after October 7th. They seek the following: skilled artist, skilled pianist, skilled speaker, skilled mimic, skilled skipper, skilled carpenter, skilled cameraman, skilled detector, skilled vessel for the message. With such skills on hand, they blasted basalt to rubble, and from the rubble they manufactured the dense shiplocks of their wildest dreams. In their forest there is no end of war for us, there is no end in sight. And this next section is composed from a chorus of war resistors. So court transcripts from conscientious objectors, reports about sonar testing, agitprop from striking dock workers, recordings from animals who have been held in captivity for military testing. And so in the spirit of a chorus, I wanted to ask you all to read with me anytime you see a repeating no or repeating out. So maybe we can do a practice round. Okay. Are we ready? Yeah. Okay. No port entry, no worship on the island. Out, out, out. Okay. That was nice. Let's go. Evidence shows the only responsible course of action is to not deploy. Stop the sonar testing, stop the missile testing. Out, out, out. That was great. There is disorientation such that become separated, then they cannot find each other. This is very rare, yet moving forward, they found many such abandoned, very dehydrated, very near death. They found the dolphins vocalizing a woman excessively. Later, they suspected tissues shot through tiny, tiny bubbles. Did they hear the loud sounds? The swimmers heard, the whales heard. The swimmers got out. The whales too got out. No port entry, no worship on the island. Out, out, out. I want this to not happen again. If inducted, I would refuse food until no. If inducted, I would trouble, no. If inducted, I would lose, no. If inducted, I would miss, no. If inducted, I would the days and the shipments, no. If inducted, I would make use of Sundays to their disturbance, no. If inducted, I would pockmark the surface of the moon, no. If inducted, I would vary the pressure, the pockets of air, no. If inducted, I would use military weapons and training to kill the first high-ranking military officer possible. And this last line is actually from Sun Ra, who was found guilty in court and jailed for conscientious objection because he didn't want to serve in the Second World War. This is the last one from this section. He was driven from the edge of the mountain. He was driven from the edge of the land. He was driven from the bed of coral. He was driven from the shallows. He was driven from the boat. He was driven from his vocation. He was driven from credit and cash. He was driven from the faith of his hands. He was driven from the one who kissed him good night. He was driven from any job that required a passport or social security number or his father's name. The mountains fled him. The land fled him. The water bent back, fled him. Blinded, the sun turned on him, sent him out, out, out. You guys did great, thank you. That's the, I have one last section for you all. Once upon a time, among a nest of islands, was one made of sand in the shape of a tooth. This was long before the advent of the atomic clock, when gulls and gannets came in flocks to winter among coral, turtles, and warm water. Fish they hunted returned as chalky blue eggs in a moon crescent field waxing gold white with guano. Eggs hatched into birds, and the fields swelled into bluffs ringed by the dance between sun and moon. Spun by light, the tides gifted fishermen in boats in exchange for safe passage. Listen, the corridor does not click without this rhythm that comes before all the corporations wielding many flags and many tools to gouge out the birds, the bluffs, the turtles, fighting over the fish and the precious minerals beneath the warm water. Long live the time beneath minerals, beneath runways and concrete and stainless steel docks that home the boats that grow into ships that glut the endless hunger of the rich. The time when rich was each island and each island was home in its flock. May time flood out the corridors. What is broken can be rebuilt. All that was built can be torn apart. At the center of each island made of sand is a base for a false war. At the center of each war, a false shrine. At the center of each shrine, a god who grieves the rhythm ringing warm water. If you are sent to the nest of islands, won't you return to the heart of the tooth? Won't you wait for the gannets and the gulls, the turtles and the coral? Water, warm, sun, and moon. Jump the clock. You will see all this time we have been waiting for you. So this final section I actually composed while watching a series of documentaries from a Taiwanese filmmaker. His name is Ke Jingyun, and he shoots on offshore islands that have been made into military bases in the South China Sea. On all of these militarized islands, there's a shrine keeper, And he is someone who is stationed to serve out his mandatory military service while also tending to the shrine on the base. And I composed these poems with the shrine keeper in mind, someone who, like us, is embedded within the war machine, every day living the tension between devotion to life and conscription for death making. The shrine keeper digs a pit into the sand and tucks himself in just before high tide. Folded neat in the pit, he falls into a deep sleep. He dreams of seawater and ribbons of kelp, shells and shards of coral, currents that carry him deep into the core of the earth. Under the watchful yawn of a divine eye, he hardens into a mound of salt. From above, the salt gleams bright as the surface of the moon. Seagulls wonder if this is the old earth. The bone-deep comfort calls them back in flocks to mate and to nest. The ocean is surprised by its own longing and returns to tidy loose feathers and excrement. The mountain grows into an island that rises from the skin of the sea, into an island faithful to the bones of the earth. Truth be told, it is the best sleep of his entire life. The shrine keeper digs a pit into the sand and tucks himself in just before high tide. Folded neat in the pit, he falls into a deep well. Far from the divine eye, many years pass, cold, damp, dark, until he strikes the bottom, which shatters into a million turtles. Here you are, he says. All this time, I thought you were done for. The turtles shimmy their bone box shells to welcome his soft body, his tame body, the bend of his ribs which grow into strong plates for his soft heart. When he finally hatches, he is thrilled to rattle his bone box body. From above, the divine eye fixes its red gaze deep into the neck of the well. Down below, a black mirror shimmers back. Truth be told, it is the best sleep of his entire life. The shrine keeper digs a pit into the sand and tucks himself in just before high tide. Folded neat in the pit, he has a sensation that something is not quite right. His skin crawls and he sees not insects nor bugs, but some dozen hatchlings of himself, large as crickets, pitched in the dig so that they too can tuck themselves in just before high tide. He cranes his neck to see 1,000,000 eyes glisten colors he refused to see before. This is how he comes to know digging all along and digging many lives. This is how he comes to know that he has been here all along, many lives before, digging and digging and digging. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. Metal birds slit the sky into clean lines. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. Bothered, the earth cannot help but concern itself with this development. Obsession brings the earth to secrete acids and proteins and calcium carbonate. Repetition makes the shrine keeper something of the earth once more. This is not without pain. Under the pressure of time, he becomes a secret. Under the pressure of sand, he grows lodged into the folds of the earth, luminous and deadly as a bullet, refined circuit beyond the reach of imagination. Do you remember beauty before the wealth of efficiency, desire before AI? He retrieves the kill with the touch of his eyes. The sea lies fallow of fleet. The sea lies fallow of fish. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. Always high tide, always the pit, always the dig. Matters of money some islands away, while vast fields lie fallow. As long as farmers abide, on equal exchange swells pockets and settles concrete. As long as fishermen abide, the suspension just before high tide, high-speed rails and neat buildings for spacious living. More lanes for the highway, more scientists for the base, more base by the sea, more plates of cheap sashimi, all under the watchful yawn of the divine eye. Metal birds slit the sky. On time now, just in time. Settle down now, sand, the fisherman, the sea. Settle down now, tide, let it be. They left the crops rotting in fields, they left the crops rotting on roads, they left the crops rotting on piers, they left the crops rotting on boats. Taking up arms, they get to work. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. Folded neat in the pit, he falls into a deep depression of time. The surface of time bends back to return him to the pit. He rises, and with each step he sheds his skin of sand. Weeping, men put down their shovels to hold his hand. 4 men who refuse to put down arms are mercifully shot. There is no other way to turn back the boats. There is no way to turn back the island. The shrine keeper digs himself into a pit just before high tide. Folded neat in the pit, he wakes up as his mother, his aunt who raised him, his grandfather who tended to rapeseed flowers with sun-spotted hands. With these hands, the shrine keeper will wash his mother's diapers. He will knead his grandmother's back. He will tend to his grandfather's garden. He will clasp his grandmother's watch. There is no way to turn back the island. There is no way to turn back the island. On Sundays, the shrine keeper plays barber, kissing his shears to the soft scalp of his brothers. He runs a blade close, close as a cow clips stalks of wheat, stalks and stalks of wheat, vast fields of heat, wild fields of gentle cows, yellow as the rolling hills, as generous waves of grass, so beloved by the sun they are praised to red. Caught in the arms of the barber's chair, the soldiers begin to weep. No stalk emerges the same. Water tumbles fast, heavy drops seep the reddened valley. Won't the pasture fall silent? Does every stream wish to meet the sea? From the crown of the valley, do you see how water goes and holds itself together? It doesn't. What a miracle to choose loss at every turn, even when poisoned. Every drop a miracle, no blade emerges the same. At each bend sprouts blades of nettle, growing wild, wild as summer heat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Basalt. That was wonderful. Okay, so our next reader is Imogen, who will be introduced sonically by Becca Teich.
Without Imogen's guiding force, I would be so much more lost. Lost because I'm a direction bottom who's relied on Imogen's fortuitous inner compass on far too many occasions to quantify. This is a poet who knows her way through space. More lost because she's not interested in forcing one to be found. She refuses to obfuscate the stochastic thrum of voyage and meander. She refuses capitalism's fetish for outcome. To experience Imogen in life and in language is to get generatively lost, to entrust yourself to her transsexual flânerie. The horizon always being total liberation, where arrival is not a discrete or singular place, but instead a yearning, fueling, straining. As Imogen begins her newest stunning collection, Raw and Zero, quote, movement flutters, what predictability is not? Outside, sunlight reigns ambiguous. You can do that with your life. Hope towards nothing but continuance, flux, and reframe. Already we're immersed in her disordering and unsettling of the constitutive cartographies imposed upon us, the tidal pull of sheer life force, the murmur and yelps of the street in riot and in lull, all of which thrust the lines forth, her syntax not just attuned to, but that swell and shape to the tune of the city, the street, the expanse, the mass. Imogen, being one of the most crushful people I know, is, quote, all up in it, crushing velocity, abundant trans eros, a plenitude of attachments to people, plants, subway stops, ideas. Her vast wisdom and love is voracious. Her lyricism sprawls open forms of desiring in excess of the clamp of productivity that allows us to generatively waste. Quote, when I say yes, it means waste me in the least lucrative way. Her poems move through what desire, always teetering between the riotously political and elbow-deep sexual, or befuddling this distinction between the two, does to language. Her depths of sincerity are twin-flamed with her sardonic quips that get to the nerve of the grotesque and mundane architectures that hold cis-heteronormativity, homo-nationalism, colonialism, and capitalism in place. From humor comes the touch of sense and gnosis. Do I laugh? Do I cry? Do I rage? Humor and critical precision cohabitate with grace and compassion for the fleshly, fumbling, flailing that comes with being a person, neither a starting nor stopping point, but the inevitable punctures in experience, the holes that make the whole. Quote, hands cinch neck, occupational gagging. There are some people who can shtick a whole fist in their mise-en-scène, end quote. Her language moves and stretches to encompass the structural contradictions of survival under the death-making regimes of U.S. empire and Zionism, the internal contradictions of one's own and singular life. Her lineations press forth against scarcity and fear, her equational insistence that intuition plus risk equals love. Here, a real poet's poet offers out her hand from the thrash and hubbub, saying, let's get disorderly, with the clarity and deliverance of poetry that reason cannot touch. Quote, this'll break you, and I, for one, need to get broke, end quote. Death to America, death to Israel, free Palestine. Join me in welcoming Imogen to the stage.
Wow, Becca, who's not here, but thank you so much. That was beautiful. It's such an honor to be read so deeply. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to see you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you to the Poetry Project, everyone who works here, who volunteers here, who makes so much happen. Thank you, Salt. It's an honor to read with you. Your ability to bring together so much information and detail and humanness through a combination of mediums is just astounding, and it's an honor to read with you. What am I doing? Also, this is my new book. It's called Raw and Zero. Thank you, Nightboat. Okay. This is called The Sidewalk Upshoot. 1. Seeds have sociality. The non-human world teaches multiple variations of labor. Poetics of bulbs and seeds, sloppy kiss of iris, precision of tulip, all of it mathematics. Walking through the garden on Bergen, I practice scansion, make language, spring thinking. All beings collectivize to stay alive. This is the starting point of politics. The city garden is an alchemist, lead, sound, earth, light, a monument to the hatred of landlords. 2. What drives me is baseless and therefore indisputable. That's Elaine Kahn. I write free New York poetry, am rendered, complex. Written language generates deliberate meditations between object and self. Perhaps I have a parasocial relationship with humanity and hence nurture crushes, write poems perennially. Dangling carrots of desire facilitate the deep yearning for an eternal way of being that doesn't demise. Call me a generalist, as in one having multiple affiliations of unfinished emergence. Relations without optimism, you might say. Wherever you rest is an edge. Weeds in the sidewalk upshoot. 3. Boost body, the sweetest things still await. Keep Keats' tragedy at arm's length as long as possible. I'm a tranny faggot, yeah, but I belong to God. Anyway, what do humans know of sacred aberration? Once I listened in the big room as Fanny Howell read The Way to Keep Going in Antarctica at St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. Sublimity has touched the surfaces of my life. I'm a constant student of my own desires, facing the realities of the finite universe. Do they need or imply direction? Calendula, mugwort, yarrow, rue. 4. Colonizers are a brutal bunch by definition. Pillage and carry on. A lawn exists to show off ownership of space. A lawn creates a concept of space, as in, look, I don't need to grow anything here. Domestication and further manicure of plants directs them as beings towards an unintuitive individuality. On my feed in Gaza, watching the genocide of Gaza, the colonization of the West Bank, Kashmir, etc., I understand the suburbs, their reason for existing. Make land unnameable, make land unlivable, name streets for what's been destroyed. I struggle alongside my friends, my kin, obsessed with survival and the trick of the thing. We are looking for holes, for pricks in the fabric, strings to guide vast lengths of impressions, memories, recipes from generations, sweetnesses that won't taste murderous thereafter. 5. Language bears with it the risk of subjugation, turns bodies into narratives subject to lexicons of state, asphalt, wire, even utopia retains a bit of occupation. What if I touch everything? Simone Weil might have called this prayer. Does prayer stem from a desire to feel or know? Why am I convinced there's a difference? Language becomes law when a word holds you in place. Something I read in the Nowadays toilet. If you wrote that, come find me later, so I can give you proper citation. The words of my prayers, my desires, my crushes will alongside my body be crushed by materiality and time, such as they are. Coda. Spring comes and it's raining. Autumn arrives and one clings to fire. Love travels the length of it. I thought the lichen looked cerebral, venous, till touch found it reef-like, nearly bleached beneath my fingers. Maybe people are afraid of stepping over the boundaries of whatever morals have been shoved down the collective throat. But the thing about stepping over something arbitrary or Protestant or what have you is that liberation is on the other side, costing nothing but one's fears, or perhaps everything. Entropy, ecstasy, and the holiness of earth. Presumably, there are many worlds, each retaining their own articulations. That's the Holy Quran. Calendula, mugwort, yarrow, rue. Tricky little Venus, here's something you should know. I am never the most liberated girl in the room. Sure, I've slept in all the right beds, floated in streams, dreaming life open like a door unto valleyful. But it's hard to stay present out here. Some days you can be your own woman, tranny, whomever, not thinking twice but going about your business like it's all grace. Other days, disassociation comes like involuntary hypnosis, and you're back at zero minus Wellbutrin and these soft butch Tulsi Oxymel tinctures some short kings gave you for living past 40. Awe exhausts me. The seasons aren't what they were, and the city's melancholic with shockingly few places to rest. There's genocide in Palestine, cops still exist, and Cecilia Gentili is dead. It must be vibes or language or vertical slabs of air accumulating the consequence of various eternal nows, everyone's skin pressed from all directions, leaving us shook and reeling. Live, laugh, love? Well, that's how the world ends. Ugly-ass throw pillows smothering what's left of land. You gotta turn your internalized histories directly on their flip. This'll break you, and I, for one, need to get broke. Like, I am so emotional, y'all. New York City a decade in, 4+ years of COVID, memories of breezing through places I'll never return, friends lost to bullets and powders, having their bodies legislated away, the way I could laugh with a particular ex or the symbiotic aspens hydrating each other. Even the climax of Bottoms makes me cry. Tatiana said something like, I identify politically as a girl, and of course so do I. Cutting, vulnerable, online, a flash of blur mingling around the outskirts, always clocking, forever at the mercy of hulking forces lurking in plain sight. If I whisk away to the woods may swallow me. The same is true of the city, but one's a solitary immersion, while the other necessitates sociality, a politics, a we, however imperfect. And I am nothing if not a girl who loves love, the smallest act of staying possible, continuously turned on, trying at friendship, feeling bad about all the friends I've failed, learning how to get fucked, to really ask for it, want it double, triple, endless, and how that can devour or open you up, door swung wide unto valley full. Let me read and write, take depression naps, be slower than retail lines allow. Try imagining a life practice, a rager, the risk of living a raw-dogging spectacular, sonic sub-frequencies and suture poems preening. I am awake durationally, alive across tenses, past continuous to future anterior. It'll all have been nothing, babe, unless it's right now. In this now, I'm sitting here stoned and asleep, listening to fucking Mellow Gold, dreaming of being younger and how hot cigarettes are. Right and wrong beds surely await my titillating imprint, and some days I live to scandalize myself. One aspires to kindness because the more at peace you are, the more space you're able to hold, allowing someone else a moment's rest. Maybe there's something petite bourgeois about kindness, but we enter a world already moving, trying not to be the fucking worst. Malika says it's hard to think when you're high. There is a charge in everything spectacles. Already we exceed ourselves, absorbed in eternalism, block universe, 4D. Religion is for God, Ahmed tells me, and for weeks I have no idea what this means. Looking around, I understand little. What little I get is understood as small. Marigolds everywhere, skies a Massachusetts gray. Atmosphere and universe. I think God plays through materials and elements, that pit bulls are nearly divine, all experience. SJ says coolness eyes power as its object. I want to tell everyone this. I want to say this to some people in particular. thus always to art institutions. It's no coincidence that second wavers are boomers. Saul says transsexuality exists at the limits and premise of refusal, that a broken clock is right at least twice a day. When I can get to that place where I'm enjoying myself, gay as the day is long, it becomes obvious that the only thing for it is to hate America. When you smoke with other people, you get more high. Malika's like, good food is just delicious. We laugh, remember phrases like dirt bike shepherd and cowboy as verb. Dumb shit you say with your friends, sitting on a mattress stoned out your gourd. I love getting high because it's easy to trip out, thinking about God and all the true punks. When watching a film, if I forget what's happened and don't want to rewind, I pretend that wherever I'm picking up the thread is the beginning of the whole affair. Evade and befuddle the frame. Okay, this is some stuff I wrote like 2 hours ago, so we'll see. I've been out of New York a year, and coming back, every moment felt flooded with words and memories, so I wanted to offer something new. Choreography is thought. Sex is mutual aid. God is the feeling of circulation. We realize ourselves and die in exile. That's Joshua Clover. Or the ruins of time build mansions in eternity. That's William Blake. It's the hour of lengthening shadows, and I'm back home beneath the humid sky. New York, 1 year past move, step off the train and my feet just carry me. No thought but style, people, friends, the harsh sounds so soothing somehow. Humidity, a surprise I abide. On the train, we're all here together, not isolated in cars, together. This leveling makes the city vibrate with endless collisions. Walk fast and it feels good. Grab stroller axle upstairs. Ancient swagger, haven't we met? Swing of arms and bend of step. A lot of memories are recalled through vibes. I wasn't mad, just vulnerable. That's Alma. What if I could rewrite my past? Better to constantly reinvent. Miguel says an artist must understand and speak with the time. COVID, Palestine, white people destroying the world. Hell is eternity in the wrong mosque. I want to be subsumed in a communism of thought. Already I exceed myself. Something perverse about the first person singular, said Constance Debray. So grow with me what we can attend to, says Cody Rose. At the heart of my anti-pastoral pastoral practice is the muck and murk, the material, elemental, violent, sensual, political world. N.H. Pritchard knew this and gave us language as matter that can be formed and reformed vis-a-vis the ever-present factors. See? A prophetic command, not unlike read, everybody fluent while not understanding. Oh well, it takes bravery to fail in public. And self-determination is the enemy of America, great Satan, graceless. But inshallah, a great civic reminder to stay with reality. You notice everything and want to live in that noticing. Inside it smells like pizza brick oven, like cafe and coffee roasting off let me start that over. This is a poem from my first book. You notice everything and want to live in that noticing. Inside it smells warm like pizza brick oven, like cafe and coffee roast rising off styrofoam. Glass is steamy when stepping inside. The car exhaust flanked by Atlantic and the Long Island Rail. So much sound, rivets loosening, swelling when weather warms. The downtown 4 angles awkward, sparks tracks through Union Square, metal on metal like Sonic Youth in the 80s. To notice everything and still want to stay. Here, I mean, in body or city, the world. To notice the bumbling stray fires everlasting. a trombonist sliding their instrument to pitch, walking straight up, bent back as they blare, ways of speaking. Speech is often careless, habitual, another banal thing we do. You plagiarize a century's worth of words and no one cares. People make way with intentions or no. But I want my life to be fiercely my own, all the while I'm collaborating. Bear, cub, otter, twink, twunk. I assume the gossip position. That one's like a cartoon version of a bear. Tom, I say, all bears look like cartoon versions of bears. Cigarettes, seltzer at rock bar, waiting on the bro down. Talking of claiming space to fuck. Chiseled, slender, robust, effortless. You know, those kind of gays. Later, we're sitting at the AIDS memorial. I say the last time I saw Alvaro dance was here. Choreo, thought, mutual aid, sex. Alvaro recovered and is also a great singer, but I'm remembering Ishmael stepping in, John Byrne revival. Ish improvised with so much fire, curiosity, grace, just strength, just real human strength, and you feel so much of that here. Thought and motion, a communism of movement and words, materiality, that's the true gift. Anyway, what are you doing tomorrow? I need to take care of my life. This is called attention. How is everybody? Are you with me? You okay? Okay, cool. Seated to poem, an act of devotion to the material world. In silence, I am eternally perturbed. Even the dumb shit is sacred. Word. My feelings become public, something I said. Space to future form beyond positivisms. Here I can surrender to the movements of my life, finding the whole underlying constant fragmentation. I give prayer with attention to the movements of life, east, west, north, south, material world, precise play, hot fucking attention, tissue, bones, nervous system, brain, and blood vessels, sure, to every house, room, parcel, bite, desire upon more and more and more, and there is mystery I sense all about me that is everything plus. In space there are fragments, strung out, dizzy smut, languages. Hear world humming, try and move with that sound. Earth hymn, geologic, words congeal. Languages, as bones are, vessels, holding. My feelings become public, an act of devotion to the material world. Prayer hears everything ineffable the body seems already to know. It won't shift your breakings, make poems or hours hospitable. Positivity has its place, but the nervous system can't always finagle. Wheeling and dealing, reeling and reeling, listening as act of attention, attention as act of love. Attention, love, beyond the intellectual, maestras of all things. I bring my body here, spread across, lick the cream, and what's up? This. Material animated within us, deep, endless, ineffable realms of desire for which we might scrawl flesh words with awe and to extremes. I'm obsessed with red bursts quickening underbelly, my platelets and poemless spleen, pinkening fascia bagging up lungs, black hole holy and washed out bones, the self-contained knowing which is not absolute. Pracs of listening, milk of new mornings, the body's molecular, gastro, oxygen-rich perspectives. to love and be loved, present in multiples, affect and entrails open source, body plus body, more people at once, how at once makes the present stretch outward toward four great corners as I feel myself becoming part of an organism so much larger than. The paradox being that any I gets subsumed or excoriated, redistributed amongst, but in a way that edges equilibrium, teases without achieving, begs a tender tending. A state names bodies in relation to surveillance. This apparatus forges desire in the state. A monstrous reception greets what pegs me. Useless whimsy beyond a man's watch, these hours worth more to me than. If I ask to get fucked, it means I need language, ungagged, imagination until meaning goes deeper, 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 deeper. Not just the matter of words themselves, though they're material too, inasmuch as they weld worlds, but to places we thought irreducible. I'm asking you to let language evoke through you, become the verb, and trust your smarts. It's true, everything that is already had its moment, and nothing is new under the. But likewise so that becoming or being is a matter of perspective, angle shim, a slight jostle and vantage, just a wee bit novel, adding feed to the new. I let my guard go unfettered down the bus lanes, finger the budding grove, this warm flash of seepage in my chest, nipples hormonal and peeking through stitch. When the estradiol dropped, I immediately knew the immensity of my own dignity and how this binds me one to whole. On the other side of the poem, we'll say I fell hard, crushed on myself, flashed a buck-tooth helium grin to all the girls and true punks in the world, my body more me and mine, therefore possessing the wherewithal to sway sluttier, ecologically, Kropotkin-y, emotionally fuckably sluttier than it had ever been before. I ate a bowl of borscht, 3 pierogies and a cookie before walking myself home. Fulton Street, Class and Pacific, something loose in my pockets. I always go to make a dramatic pause and then look back at the page and I'm like, where was I? That didn't work at all. Evenings are for sex and soft drugs, a handful of paragraphs written or read, gravitational erotic flotsam between precarity and nasal swabs, trips to several pharmacies, markets, bookstore, and booze, the rave in Queens last Thursday night, all slick with lube tongue sweat, so rare's a pleasure, oft guilt in plague times. Naked in bed, folding my sorrows, that's Bob Kaufman, listening to Julius Eastman as cars zip Pacific in pitch. Dream. Desiring desires, I learn to ask for them. I ask the wind, douse me hot evenings. I ask Izzy if I can kiss them beneath the Myrtle Broadway stop. I ask the bodega worker to hold a neighbor's keys and later bring Liz pilfered marigolds. I ask the misconnection to miss me back, light as the life spooled across her aging face. Q train, East River, Manhattan, Hart's Bridge. Ask my body to feel a way through sentence or line or image sensation, undersurge and tension, the possibility of abrasion, assault excoriation, romance by the by and by. I ask Erica, can we hold hands on Houston a year after COVID paused what physicality we knew? I asked the moon last night, coin full with Aries, does rage have an end, and if so, pain too? 'Cause manifold forms of ache always sore me, coming at the tip of forever's lips. Words are the material shaping objects that will later be hurled at us. Us evokes the many that may or may never cohere. Another question of desire as you and you and you and you and you like it. Everything thirsty below the sun. Come now. Save jealousy for pop songs, boys with guitars and self-referencing bands, worms to the ear tunneling fast about the truck bed, blue-pink dawn, drunk on drugs, body 22, goddamn, 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 the dynamic possibilities of a grammatically incoherent sentence. What a long, long, long form slippage. When I tried my hand at heteronormativity, no unhinged happiness could touch me. What loss we've known. Look deep. See the moon's empty oceans play earth-tide. Watch pandemic rats strew trash for pigeons, pleasuring worm soil. My love loves a lover's love, so delicious, I'm ecstatic, residue of breath brought home to revel. How would I love you if I didn't love your pleasures? Let me bring marshmallows, bring chocolate and cherries, pull kindling for fires stoking out back. It's a fantasy where I'm happiest, knowing my friends are writing and or fucking, publicly fingering, barely knowing one another, and still adjacent pages, mutual pleasure, mutual sweet onions in the garden. This poem is called Abiquiu, and I wrote it in New Mexico. I had gone to a giant, there's a place called Abiquiu out in the desert, the high desert, and there's a giant adobe mosque there, and I went to speak to an imam and meet some people, and you know, the collision of that sort of context with the indelible indigenous presence on that land and the vastness of space really sort of reframed how I think about America. Red sun, open sky, thriving. Time is a spiral. I find myself in the quick. Coffee black in the burnt yellow, juniper, high desert, Cenozoic, Rio, rift. Water tastes turquoise, straight from aquifer. We thirst, we human, we animal, drink light, quench cells. I tell the blue-eyed Imam Adar al-Islam, I am trans, woman, thirsting for taqwa, and what does he make of it all? Remember God every day, he says, sunlight spilling through adobe lattice. Beyond the ridge, mesas endless, sites of indigenous life, land theft, atomic sprawl, Guadalupe, pueblos, ghost, presence, ghost, season of the bloodless, blood-soaked fiestas. Can a prayer repeated uproot America? My boots collect an abundance of sand, light bathes calligraphic, alhamdulillah. I remember God, sun-kissed, symbiotic, how on distant hills aspens funnel water, turquoise, aquifer, every being exhales its own, shahada. All right, I'm going to read two more. This is called Leave It Open, Imogen. That's me. If desire, like politics, death, and pleasure, is always being learned, then a human body means everything is questionable. Triggers such spirit, the law reads insufferable. Who am I if I put nothing on the line in the line? Leave it open, Imogen. Leave the page. Go find the world, cruel and sensual. Any road becomes exposed, becomes exposition, Jerusalem, a poem surefit with yearning. Naming is the first surveillance, raw and zero, a conflagration of warped connection. Beings suffer for want of fuck all. Such are the limits of imperial grammar. Suffering is omni. It's hard to see the beat of stupid joy, tap, tap to slaughter. Then again, what's possible? 2 bodies, 3 bodies, 100, mine and yours and holes, spellbound by spit and undulation. Every switchable orifice. Incredible, after all, these things nobody taught me. What revelation to witness revelation, flush another's face. God, ambivalence, we suffer for want of. Sinead says these are dangerous days if one says what one intends. I say intifada, I love you, that I want for us grace, but a poem can't say what that means. Okay, this is the last one. There's so many people in this room that I could thank and that made all these words possible and that make any words that will ever come in the future possible. It's thrilling to be here at like the World Cup of poetry readings. I've missed this place with all my heart, so it's really nice to see you all. And I want to remind everyone of the obvious to keep thinking of screaming about fucking up shit over what's going on in Palestine and Lebanon and Iran and Sudan and Congo and Minneapolis and East LA, fucking everywhere, and keep those places and those people on your lips and in your heart. This is called How Will You Live? People wake up in the morning. Lord knows how, but they do. I, among them, take cereal or blue corn atole with coffee. New York City winter feeling all Pacific Northwest, like what the fuck? Only Earth and the mess we've made here. White America, deranged, a shady lane everybody supposedly wants. Love lasts or it doesn't, vibing along in overlapping velocities, oft becoming an existent, more generative than otherwise known, given an aptitude for slowness that keeps the conversation growing. All these people, settings, and notions to crush on overwhelm my subjectivity. Choices and plenty unbind the tight-knotted knots of me. Here I am, spilling out. Scarcity is a notion in servants of surveillance, state daddies, repro, forced famine, abyss. So I shoplift affection from right and wrong places, spit takes and blink beat lights, multi-fingered orgasm apprenticeships, what I want in a poem, what I say please for in a fuck. Alma and I are always in the same place at the same time, like fate and destiny, a passionate play. Fifth Avenue, Bay Ridge, MTA, readings, riots, stoops, and them I trust my lust. The world is sick. The world is not sick, but people are. Forced we of taxonomies, guts and bones stewed for commerce and account. Not for nothing, we fags leave fields wherever we go, blurred visions of corporeal joy made manifest, having known such discrete violences born along the way. Digital space augments necessary carnal escapades, opportunities to queer languages with our hot-ass tongues. This is how one learns to locate oneself, feeling something's different, strange, and lacking words to name you. Cruisy angels, we come together, moon circling, earth circling sun. I believe in the twisting late autumn roses, that revolution, like much else, laughs and flirts, soaks and coats everything with pulse, blurts total, unruly, good to see yous, offers anyone the chance to be their best, which is precisely the moment one's fears falter. Outside, there's a neurotics to the action, the rally, the march, clarity and unity as though God means to bloom. Hands held, arms drawn vertical at intersections, traffic block, queer block, red rolls, megaphone. Maybe here collectivity awakens, material world smoldering blithely about. Transsexual. Hi. It's me, Imogen, present, knowing everything's alive, thus mutably complex. This path I choose, become strange and connect, surrender to, bearing it whole up and down the avenues, everywhere my body goes. With me, babe, it's all alluvial. Categorical refusal, transsexual liminal, spiritual acts. The place where remaining and staying possible, where showing up, touching the riot, hearing the riot, and witnessing the mess makes sense. It's like intuition plus risk equals love, and nothing's ever been clearer. Same soul everywhere. My loves and I, we fist suck and cuddle, curtains drawn wide for a Bed-Stuy street, breathless as the West unravels. Fucking, getting fucked, Adderall, really any upper, a Tulsi spliff to close the night. I was a drunk, turned sober, now laugh in the middle, whatever. Genealogies, all my selfish acts, my quasi-selfless gesturings, the ability to hold you and them. These things and others, friends, lovers, punk shows and parks, my crush, my crushes, the hopes I hold for myself, some sort of ethics derived partially on the spot, a free Palestine, queer liberation, the twist, the tutti frutti, shahada, the softening toward, all of this will have pulled me through. Various failures, numerous gaudy ruins, an adorably stupid girl living and dying in America. Hello. Thanks.
Beautiful. That was so beautiful, Imogen. Welcome back to the Poetry Project. Thank you, Basalt, as well, for your incredible reading. I feel it was such a gift to hear you both read together. As you were saying, Imogen, it's both an act of devotion and resistance to the material world. So I felt it was such a beautiful pairing. Thank you all for coming. I want to thank our introducers as well, Fargo and Becca, who couldn't be here, but were here somehow in the room. I want to thank the text working tonight, James at the sound table, Serene at videography, staff support, Anna and Heather, as well as all our volunteers. Thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you soon again at the Poetry Project. Thank you.